What up, all my nerds, geeks, and comic book freaks? It's Salvador Kubrick back yet again with another episode of Comics and Slabs. Today, we're talking CGC, what that means for you as a buyer or a seller, someone who's looking to grade, or just curious about how the company operates. So, follow me and let's get nerdy. Why would someone even want to grade a book? Well, there's many reasons. Heck, there's a billion reasons. I'm just gonna give you a few though. Someone could have loved that book so much. It could have been the first comic book that they bought, could have been the first time they read about a certain character, it could be their favorite part of a story. There's many reasons why people grade comics. But I think the main one that we all agree upon and know is it increases the resale value. Don't believe me? Google right now the comic book that you're wanting. Go to eBay, look at a raw comic, an ungraded comic versus a CGC. There's going to be a substantial price difference. And the reason why is because when you're doing buying a graded comic book, yet again, like I said, you're buying something that's agreed upon between you, CGC, and the buyer. Makes the transaction so much easier. But how does CGC determine that grade that is so valuable to us as the buyer and seller? Well, they use their own grading system, which goes from 0.5 to 10.0, which means you can have the worst comic book in the world. I've seen Amazing Fantasies with the cover half torn off at 0.5, but they still sell, they're still sought after. Obviously, I would go for a higher grade of Amazing Fantasy 15 one day. That's the first appearance of Spider-Man, if you guys didn't know that. But fingers crossed. So yeah, so 0.5 to 10.0. It is graded by not one, but three individuals to ensure an unbiased and, great grade. Something you can trust. All three graders start at 10 and work their way down for every defect. A defect, I kind of explained them earlier, but a defect can be anything from a tear, a rip, a spine tick, a loose staple. Heck, even the whiteness of your comic book pages is a huge part of your grade. So that is all tied together. Three individuals look at it. They determine the general consensus of a grade. Thus, your grade is born. It's not like a wizard walked out and just screamed out to the heavens holding up your comic book, "Holy thy, what grade is this?" And a big lightning comes and it's encapsulated. But all kidding aside, when should someone grade a comic book? Because let's be honest, some of you watching this are looking to increase the value of your comic book to the max, which is okay. Shout out to you if you're a reseller. We don't care. Everyone does comic books a little bit different, and that's why I love this community. But here's some things to look out for comics you should grade. Is it a key issue? Is it a first appearance of a character? Does it start an iconic storyline like Days of Future Past or Civil War or Secret Wars? Something to that effect. Is it a rare variant? Believe it or not, just having a variant of a copy of a comic book will be way more than sometimes its original cover. Look at the Wolverine as Deadpool comic book from the early 2000s. That came into existence because Marvel was like, yo, comic book dealers, send us like 10 DC comic books, we'll send you this variant. So there isn't a lot of that out there, and that's why that comic book is worth like $500. So even having just a different variant of a original comic book can be worth some money. Is it a newsstand? Which, if you guys watch my first video and my second video, I kind of explain what a newsstand is versus a direct edition. So those are some of the reasons people would be looking to, grade a comic book. But what does it cost? If you're looking to sell this, you may want to know, because not every comic book is worth grading if you're looking to sell it. So modern comic books, anything that was made after 1975 with a fair market value of $200 and below is $25. A vintage comic book, any comic book that was made before 1975 is $40. A high value book, so any comic book that has a value of up to $1,000 fair market, is $85. Then they even have another one. If you're a lucky individual that you have a comic book worth enough to do the unlimited value, I shout you out. I don't know if I'm ever going to get there. Personally, it would be sick though. So that's for any comic book that has a fair market value over $1,000. Its cost is a little bit different than the other options. So instead of doing a flat fee, they ask for 4% of the fair market value of the item. So if you have a really expensive comic book, it's going to be a lot more to press it up. But that's okay because you're protecting your, the value, and you're increasing the value at the same time. So you're protecting the item and then popping that sucker up. Smart. Yet again, I don't know if I'll ever get to the unlimited value. I just did a modern comic book myself, and it's cool. But let me explain the process that I went through and that the process you're going to go through. And this is just for a regular plain old Jane book, no JSA or anything like that, just regular grading. So the process is, 1, you find that fair market value of the comic book. How you can do that is a few simple ways. I just go to eBay and look what the book is raw. Yet again, you want to look at it raw, because that's what matters. So when you're determining your fair market value, you can't think of it as like a graded comic book like I did in the beginning. I kind of had to call CGC and get it broke down just because I was a newbie. Hence why I'm making this video, so you don't have to talk to someone in Florida man doing comic books. But no, so you find your fair market value by going to eBay, looking up a raw version of your comic book about the grade you think it is, or you can do the Overstreet comic book guide. That is another great thing. There is a little bit discrepancy recently, in price versus fair market value on eBay and the Overstreet, because eBay is a little bit more dependent and more volatile because it's always changing, where Overstreet, they update every so often. But there you go. There's 2 ways to figure out your fair market value of your comic book. You pick whatever option that you apply for, if it's modern, vintage, expensive, or not. Then you fill out the CGC submission form, which is very simple. I didn't have any problems with that. So then what you do is, after you fill out that submission form, you get a printing slip, or a packing slip, I apologize. Print that packing slip off. Then you pack your comic books very carefully. I'm saying super carefully. If you think you're careful enough, you're not. What I normally do is I take some bubble wrap, those big old guys made for envelopes. I'll take like a mailer that already has bubble wrap. I will put cardboard in the front and the back of in between my comic books, so my comic books are sandwiched in. I'll tape that, put it in the middle of all that packing bubble wrap, the really thick stuff. You know what I'm talking about, the stuff that looks like you put in your hand, you look like a robot. Probably played with it as a kid, used it as like a karate chop from SpongeBob, if you remember the karate chop gloves. Yeah, those are what those make me think of. But anyways, pack that all in there and include the packing slip, and then what you do is you ship it to CGC, and then you wait. The turnaround times differ, so they can be 28 days for a modern. They could be, here, I made a little cheat sheet because this is a lot of numbers. Just bear with me. So like I said, 28 days for modern, 42 days for vintage, 10 days for high value, and 3 days for unlimited. Keep in mind, these are working days, not actual days. So Saturday and Sunday do not count. No. So let me explain how mine went. So mine, I sent off July 25th, and I received it back September 17th. So mine was about 55 days. But I know you're saying, but Salvador, you said it was going to be 28. You're right, I did. I pressed my comic book. So what pressing is, I'll explain that real quick. So you can take a comic book that, let's say, it's like a 9.2 because it has some bends and stuff here or there, and then pressing makes it flat, makes it clean, and then your grade should go up. So I sent one of the first comic books I bought back in when I really got back into comic books again, off to get graded, and I wanted to get pressed because it's been through some stuff. I had this cheap little short box. It's been through a couple floods. It's been through a kid. It's been through mini moves. Yeah, it needed a little bit of love. So I used their CCS pressing option. So that is why mine took a little bit longer for the turnaround. But guys, woo, it's beautiful. We'll get there. That is the very last thing I'm doing. So what are other companies that you can get graded from? Because CGC may be the first, but they're not the last or the only ones. The next biggest one is CBCS. I know a lot of people who don't use CGC and like that's their go-to CBCS. I love CBCS. It's a cool slab. I think they do a lot of great work. Their banana promos are really great. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google CBCS and banana. You'll enjoy it. You got PGX. I'm not the biggest fan of PGX. I saw some wonky comic books in the Reddit groups I'm in from people who use PGX. Someone had a Deadpool #1, like the cool one where he's all jumping out like from like, you know, like late 90s, early like 2000. I can't remember the exact date, but someone had one of those, which is a gorgeous book. Raw, it's going for like $60 right now. It had in a PGX slab. It was like tilted, so like the slab's like this and then the comic book was like this. What? PGX? Then you do have Quality Comics and a few other different people, but at the end of the day I recommend CGC. A couple of reasons why I like their work. They are the standard for grading. Even if you disagree with that statement, I feel like it's pretty true if you just look at comic books as a whole. They're the standard. They're number one. They're higher resale values than their other counterparts. The next closest is CBCS, but still CGC are worth more than a CBCS slab comic book. And maybe that will change. Who knows? But that is my breakdown why I would suggest CGC. And let's look at my first CGC slab of my own personal comic book. I just sent this off. So let's grab that. Here it is. This is my first comic book of my own personal collection that I sent off to get graded. This is my Secret Wars #2 variant edition, which is the first appearance of Gwenpool. Get out of here if you think Howard the Duck #1 is the first appearance. It is Secret Wars #2. Gorgeous cover. Amazing slab. Like I said, I have a bunch of slabs that were like, I have one that was made back in January, so it's relatively new. So it's cool to see, like, you know, even a couple of months doesn't make a huge difference compared to that one I have and this one right here. It's amazing. I sprung a little bit extra to get the Deadpool custom label because it was my first comic book, so I wanted to make sure it was cool and it was distinguished amongst the other ones. Amazing process. I had no issues. Calling CGC was an easy experience. They answer immediately. There's no long hold times. I know there was some drama and some, you know, like scandal with CGC recently, but that was before I started talking to them, and I wasn't reholdering. But if you want to know more about those scandals, Google. I had to be honest with you guys and let you know the full story, not just my view of it. So they have been in trouble. It's a mega company. What do you expect, America? But yet again, I'm impressed. I'm definitely using CGC again. I actually have 2 comic books going through their JSA authentication program, which will be another video when I get those back. But comment if you feel like you know a little bit more about CGC. I don't know why I pronunciate. Comment if you feel like you know a little bit more about CGC and the process, if this makes you a little bit more confident in getting a comic book graded or perhaps even buying one online. Thank you for watching. Stay collecting, but more importantly, stay you. Salvador Kubrick with Comics and Slabs. Until next time.